upgrading the khushu' in prayer series, I wanted to make we have today and then next Tuesday and Thursday, and then inshallah we'll have Ramadan in terms of my Khatira series. So one thing I wanted to do is just to go over some of the etiquettes of Ramadan, but not in terms of the actual fasting, but the actual activities that we engage in a lot in Ramadan. And the one that I decided to cover and go over is the etiquettes of being a guest and the etiquettes of being a host. Right? We go to many iftars in the month of Ramadan, family, friends, etc. And we have people over also very often as well in the month of Ramadan. So just to quickly go over about maybe 10, if you will, tips on today we'll be covering how to be a guest. So the etiquettes of being a guest. The first is the actual invitation itself and asking or acceptance of the invitation. The Prophet ﷺ, he advises us that when people invite you to various things such as weddings, aqiqahs, etc., that you accept the invitation. Okay? That you accept the invitation. Obviously, as long as it's a halal place you're going to, right? The environment is halal and it's not taking you away, or you have the ability to go, you should do so. One thing that happens often actually when people are invited somewhere, one etiquette I wanted to bring up to people is, people often have the question, who else is going? Right? Now I want you to invite somebody. Imagine you're inviting somebody over to your house and you ask them, hey, I'm having an iftar tomorrow night. I would love for you to come. And the first question they ask you is, who else is coming? What do you hear when they ask you that? I'm only going to come if the other people that are coming, I like them, right? Because I don't care about you. Unfortunately, we ask that question. Now, if you're going to be like, sometimes you ask that question, if you're going to, after you say yes or no, not before. Okay? Don't ask that question because it makes people feel bad, like they're not good enough for you to come just at least for them. All right? Now, if you're asking, hey, like, who else is coming so I know not to mention in front of somebody else, okay, that's a different story. Right? And by the way, when you're invited somewhere, make sure that you're careful who you tell because they might feel bad that they're not invited. Right? So if you invite one of your friends, okay, and then you go tell other people that are also friends with this person, like, I didn't get the invitation. Right? Brother A, Brother C, Brother D got it, but I'm Brother B and I got left out. It makes them feel bad. Right? So make sure also, before the invitation, the actual event itself, you don't ask who else is coming, and you also don't tell other people like, hey, party at this person's house, but they're not invited. Okay? When you're going, it's customary to make sure that you let the person know that you're on time, or if you have something else you have to take care of that night. So for example, in the month of Ramadan, one of the tricks of shaitan is that he gets us busy with iftars, right? So if you're going to somebody's house, just let them know, hey, like, I'm going to come inshallah, thank you for having me, but I'm also going to be at Isha and I have to leave by X, Y, and Z time, right? So it's just proper to let them know, like, hey, give them a heads up when you're expecting to leave. And generally, it's pretty often that everyone's going to go to Isha at the local masjid, but if you want to give them a heads up, it's also proper to do so. And make sure you take something with you. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Tahadu tahabu. Give gifts and it increases love between one another. Okay? So take something, even if it's something small. Some fruit, some dates, whatever it may be. Okay? While you're there, obviously, when you go, you knock on the door, make sure that the person knows you're there, or you text them or you call them. Don't bang on the door too loud, They might think the FBI is here or something, Like, FBI, open up, huh? Be careful, okay? Also, when you're going to somebody's house, make sure, when you knock on the door, for instance, you are on this, if they have a peephole, right, they want to know who's there, don't step away from it, right? Because the etiquette is that you don't stand in front of the door, because when they open the door, they don't want, maybe something is behind there that you shouldn't be looking at, right? But And so you're supposed to step up to the side. If there's a peephole, you have to stand in front of it. So turn your face away from where the door is opening so you don't inadvertently, accidentally look inside and see something you're not supposed to see. Right? Sometimes this happens. People open the door and the person in the background is running to get their hijab or something. So make sure that you're facing away from looking inside. Okay? And number 2 is ask before you use things in the person's house. Right? Where can I go to the restroom, etc. Okay? So don't go into a person's house, go to the kitchen, open the fridge, right? Okay? Ask before you use things. Even if it's a close friend, it's still proper to ask. Okay? Stay in the area that they take you to, right? Especially if you're going to somebody else that's new or whatever. There's a large event. Maybe the brothers are on this side, the sisters are in that place. So just stay in the area where they take you to and seat you to. The next one is that you're not snooping around, looking at people's things, looking through their things, I should say, right? Our sheikh, actually, even when he would tell us, like even when you go to a person's house and there's like a bookshelf, ask before you start going through their books, for instance. Sometimes it's a topic of conversation, like, oh, I read that book, oh, this is a great book, that's a great book, right? People have that conversation. He said even something like that, it's better to ask somebody because maybe they have something there that maybe they forgot is there or something like that. So it's just more proper to ask. The other thing is, don't criticize the other guests or the host's house or the neighborhood or whatever. Huh? Like, man, you live in a ghetto place, right? Don't say things like this, right? Huh? Okay. Oh, you spent how much for this house? Oh, I don't know if it was worth it. You know, saying things like this, it's very demeaning. Sometimes it slips even between the closest of friends. Make sure. Oh, you live too far away from A, B, and C, or even small criticisms like this, right? Make sure that you don't do that. Don't overstay your welcome, right? You're a guest. Don't overstay your welcome. It's better to leave a little early than a little too late, okay? And obviously, especially in the month of Ramadan, you know, sometimes people feel like they have to host people and they can't really kick them out and they're willing to stay even if it's past Isha, but they really want to go and they keep looking at their clock, and, right? So don't do that. While you're there, don't ask, hey, when's dinner? What's for dinner, right? What time is it coming out? Just be appreciative, okay? It doesn't matter. Because you're not supposed to be there for the food. You should be there for the company and giving your brother or your sister the acceptance of that invitation, okay? If you have allergies of something, make sure you let them know ahead of time, not before, okay? Not till after they serve. Also, if you don't like something, don't say, oh no, I don't like this food, right? You eat whatever you eat, don't eat whatever you don't eat, okay? But don't criticize the food that people are serving you, okay? So, for instance, some people, they don't like Arabic coffee, it's too strong, you know? You go there and somebody offer you, so you're like, oh no, I don't like it, it's too strong for me. Don't say something like that, right? Just say, oh, Jazakallah khair, I can't drink it right now because I need to get some sleep or something like that. That's a little bit nicer and not criticizing the things that they give you. Make sure that you clean up after yourself as well, right? Make sure that whatever work has to be done after, everyone's here is hosted people, I'm sure. There's a lot of work that goes into it beforehand and a lot of work that goes into it afterwards. So make sure you clean up after yourself. And the last thing is that make sure you express gratitude 3 times. Number 1 is when you get invited. Number 2 is when you show up. And number 3 is when you get home that night, when you leave, okay? Just think a person, right? So they invite you, be like, hey, invitation, oh, Jazakallah khair, thanks for inviting us. When you get there, Jazakallah khair for inviting us. When you get home, thank you so much for inviting us, Jazakallah khair, we had a good time, right? So make sure that we have these etiquettes during the month of Ramadan, because as we know, it is the month of ibadah, and there are various forms of worship, and at times and places, some forms of worship are a higher priority than others. And so when you're hosting people, that's a high priority of worship. When you're being a guest and being hosted by people, that's also a high priority in terms of worship, in terms of the etiquettes and the manners that we have while we're there. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us, forgive us our shortcomings. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله